Welcome back, everyone, to the Unclassified podcast. I'm your host, Ben Wheeler. I'm joined today, as I am every week, with the luxurious, the lovely Preston Stewart. And it is a beautiful day in America. The sun is shining down on us. Can you feel the warmth of your ancestors on the back of your neck, Preston? Can you? Can you? Because for those you don't know, for those of you who follow me on Instagram, on the Twitter, in the Twitter sphere, you know I was, quote, libbing out on Tuesday. But you know who also was libbing out for the first time? Yours truly. Preston, what was it like to lib out for the first time in your entire life?
I was interested to see how everything turned out. This is the first election we've had, I think, since Trump came into office. And there's been a lot of polling about what do people like or not like and how this is going. And this, I think, was kind of the first opportunity people had to go to the ballot box and say whether they're on board or not. But some questions I have for you, Ben, because these were not national elections.
No.
Right? So really what we saw is not going to impact what we talk about day to day. Today we're getting into some stuff in Africa, of course, Venezuela. Announcement this morning, we might put troops back in Syria or add more troops to Syria, which kind of come flying under the radar there. But all of these elections, if I'm correct, were local or state.
Yeah.
Okay. So how do you weigh that then? You follow all of this.
These are important. So basically the Virginia governor's race works as a bellwether for how the presidency's going, right? In 2021, they voted for Republican. In 2017, they voted for a Democrat. So, right, it kind of goes back and forth as to people's opinions on the presidency in the current moment. New Jersey hasn't always been that way, but Republicans made, significant gains in 2021 and in 2024, right? So that's all there. And then, of course, you had the great sideshow in New York, and then you had Prop 50, which is Gavin Newsom introducing the screw Donald Trump bill, basically.
And the redistricting.
Yeah, the redistricting. Okay. That went very well. But no, these do matter. It does represent a gauge on how Trump and the Republican Party is being perceived around the country. And so, they lost statewide in Georgia by 26 points. That's the first time a Democrat has won statewide in Georgia for a state office in 40 years. So, that's pretty crazy, right? It is a great big indicator. And I will say this. You can tell that Trump is very startled by it because now all he's doing is talking about affordability. He said it, I think, 30 times in the past 24 hours.
That was going to be my question, is what actually comes of this? You think there will be any real change?
Yeah, so Trump is trying to do everything he can to get the filibuster removed because he says if they remove the filibuster, then they can prevent Democrats from ever taking power again. But Republican senators, aren't – some of them are old, but not as old as him. And they know that the filibuster structurally advantages Republicans, so they're not too eager to do that. I don't think they will do that. But yeah, it's kind of like, Trump has to get the prices down. He has to get things down. He also has to stop, I guess, kind of just being who he's being as for the past year. And it is a referendum on him. And it cannot be stressed enough. These were not narrow wins, and they can downplay it and say, well, they're blue states and they're blue cities, or Georgia's not a blue state. It's purple, I would say. They have Democratic senators with an entirely red state government. New Jersey was trending red, and Virginia also as well, less so than New Jersey. So, and to get repudiated by 14 to 18 to 26 points is crazy. That's crazy. And it is a sign of how bad things are. And, not all of Virginia, is quite liberal. The GOP got wiped out even in Republican areas. There were incumbents who were there for 40 years who lost to young Democrats. So this is pretty bad for him, which means good for the rest of the nation, right? In terms of how people react, Mike Johnson's continuing to be like, well, it doesn't matter. It matters. If the Democrats were to perform as they did on Tuesday in the midterms, Democrats would be looking at close to 250 seats. If they perform even slightly better, they could be looking at 300 seats in the House. They could also take back the Senate. So that's not good, right? Especially if your entire modus operandi when it comes to being president is to stay out of prison. It's not great when you're giving the keys to your opposition party. So we'll see. I think we will see the Senate start to constrain Donald Trump. I think we're already seeing signs of it. I also think we'll start to see the House do that. I do think, given the election results now, we know a few things. Trump is far more unpopular than previously believed. I mean, you see all these opinion polls, and it's like, okay, it was near January 6 levels, or maybe he's below it, whatever. But these suggest he's far more unpopular than the polls suggest. It also suggests that once primary season is over, once Trump can no longer primary anyone in the House and the Senate, he very well may just become a lame duck. Although the question is, can he be a lame duck? Because he just uses executive power, and the House and the Senate don't assist him in any way, right? I don't know. We will see. But I would not be cynical about what these election results meant. This was huge. It was I would say, the best night for Democrats since 2012. I mean, even in 2018, they net lost Senate seats, right? In 2020, sure, Joe Biden won, but that dragged on for, I don't know if you remember, the world's worst week and a half. And
was that the runoff elections?
No, 2020 was when Joe Biden had won, but then Trump declared victory. And so
that
we
part
had to
of it.
go through.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were talking about that little detail.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about...
Oh, we also had the runoffs there, too. But even then, I mean, Democrats lost seats in the House in 2020. They net won everywhere. I mean, they won seats in Mississippi, breaking the supermajority there. So this is very good.
So in terms of what this means, do you expect to see Trump view this as we need to change course, or we need to double down and get these things done faster now?
Okay, well, so I think it's both. He said two things yesterday. He said both things. He started talking about affordability, which suggests he knows that there's a pivot in order. But he also talked about that they just need to seize power faster, so that way they can keep Democrats permanently out of power. And he's talking about doing an executive order because he says he's going to require citizenship in order to vote and all this other stuff. And courts have struck that down, but he's going to try to go for it again, which is, I mean, the reason you don't really see the Senate go along with that is because it's an own goal. Because the people who own passports passports really the only way you can prove you're a citizen, right? Given that some states do give IDs to people who are undocumented or green card holders or whatever. A passport's really the only way you can prove that. And the people who own passports don't vote for Donald Trump, largely. I don't want to stereotype everyone, right? But largely they do not. And so that's bad. And so he's going to try to do all that, but a lot of it's going to fly in the thing. He's deeply unpopular. I don't know. I think he will try to seize more power. I think he will fail. But we should not discount the amount he's going to try to mess with the midterms. But yeah, he knows he is screwed. Yes.
All right, we got some other stuff we're going to get into today, but I have a question real quick. You said that he's trying to make it to where you need to be a citizen to vote. I feel like is that not already a thing, or it should be a thing? That seems like a common sense piece.
It is a thing. You have to be a citizen to vote. And you can kind of tell who's voted before based on how they think voting works. Here in Illinois, this is how it works. You go in, you say, I am Ben Wheeler, and I live at XYZ, okay? And they check the voting roll and they go, oh, okay, that's you, right? And then they give you the ballot, right? I think sometimes I don't think you have to give your social security number. I don't believe so. I think I just have to give my name and my address, and then I go vote, right? And in order to register, in order to get on the rolls, I have to be a citizen, right? They won't even process if I'm not, right?
Right.
And so you try to do it, and then it gets to a DA, you get indicted. I mean, it just doesn't even process as a crime. And so that's how you vote. What he wants to do is that when you go to vote, you have to present proof of citizenship. And this can be, I guess, really, it's only a passport, right? Maybe a birth certificate? I don't know. So that's what he wants to do. And that is dumb. He's had this idea, what about national voter ID? but he doesn't like that idea. So, we're I say more power to him. Let him pass the pass. You only can have a passport to vote, because they're not even, the State Department's not even processing passports at a fast rate anymore. So it's kind of just like he's just letting people like you and me vote, while cutting out people who, otherwise maybe
not a lot of people have passports.
Yeah. So, okay. I think it's only 50% of Americans have a passport. It might be less than that.
That sounds way too high, man.
It might be 30%, 20, 30%. Yeah. So
I would buy like 10%, honestly.
Yeah, and then good luck.
Because you only need it. You only need it for international travel. And how many times have you talked to people that are getting ready to go on international travel and they say, "Oh shit, I need to get a passport." Yep. Right. So there's very few people that are like, you know what, I should just lock this in case I need it sometime down the road. Like if you told me 10% of Americans, I'd buy that.
Oh, 100%.
We don't travel internationally. This isn't Europe, man. We don't bounce around and see the world. We kind of lock it down. Go to Disney World.
Truth. Yeah, I'm not saying that Trump voters don't have passports. I'm sure many of them do. I'm just saying I know what the numbers are on the passport holding, and it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I oppose it as a supporter of democracy and as a believer that if you pay taxes, you should be allowed to vote with no difficulties. But it's also like, I don't know, if you want to put your hand on the stove, go for it. So that is very, quite an interesting development, but I don't know. We'll see if he's successful. Probably not, because they lost. This is, if I were just let me live out for a second. One more second.
Go for it. Yeah.
If I were elected to the Virginia House of Delegates, you know what I'd be doing? I'd be showing up and go, bye-bye, bye-bye. That'd be me waving goodbye to the GOP that no longer exists in Virginia. It's sad. We used to like them, and now we don't like them because they're losers. All right, folks. All right, that's enough of that. All right,
Ben Wheeler, gracious in victory.
Yes.
Yeah, karma's going to get you now. So we were recording this a couple days early because Ben and I are both traveling this weekend, and no doubt, two things are going to happen now. First off, Trump has an announcement in 2 hours. That is for sure going to be groundbreaking, right? We're going to war or something, and we're just going to have to scrap this whole thing. Yeah. So we know that's happening. The second part is now, for karma, you are going to get stranded either in Austin, Texas, or Chicago. I don't know. You're going to get stuck for sure.
You're probably right. They're going to close the airspace, and I'm going to be stuck in Texas. Wouldn't that be awful? Enjoy. You know what I
got some contacts down there, man. Some
Here's
family
what
down there. We're going in a few weeks.
I think I'm being stranded in Austin, Texas, and I think you're never going to hear from me again. In 20 years, you're going to find me off in Ben Wheeler, Texas, and they'll see I've been out. Like, you ever see the thing where the pilot's gone after World War II, and he's the king of the island? It's gonna be me in Ben Wheeler, Texas. I'm gonna arrive, and it's gonna be like,
what do you
Jesus,
think Texas is like, man?
What do I think it's like? I don't know what it's like down there.
Listen, if you get stuck in Texas, we'll record down there. I'm going down in a few weeks. I'm flying into Austin, so if you're just still in the airport, we'll connect on the 26th and make it work.
Stuck in the airport like I'm Edward Snowden. I can't go anywhere.
3 weeks. All those memes you shared. All right, let's get it. Let's get into the stuff, man. Yeah. Let's get into the stuff. Should we talk Africa?
Yes, Africa.
There's a couple things playing out there right now that are kind of wild in different directions. Sudan and Nigeria. I want to start with Sudan. There was the scale of this, as it's being reported, is hard to grasp. And if this scale is accurate, we're going to really feel like we dropped the ball in not talking about this more. So the RSF, Rapid Support Forces, ongoing civil war there. They moved into an area in Sudan called El Fasher. It was a humanitarian hub. They moved in about 10 days ago, kicked out the Sudanese armed forces, and the initial report was they went straight to a hospital and killed all of the people there. That was bad enough. They have for a long time held the city in siege, and they've not allowed any humanitarian access. So everything we're getting are people on the ground that were able to escape, calling out, giving reports, and then satellite imagery. The Yale Humanitarian Research Lab has kind of been leading the charge here, and they've been able to tell through satellite imagery kind of the scale of the killings. Their executive director a few days ago said that more people have been killed in Sudan in the last 10 days than in Gaza in the last 2 years. The number he's basing that off of is 68,000. And I understand there's some contention around who's included in those numbers and how accurate they are, he is basing those off of 68,000. So he is saying more than 68,000 people may have been killed in Sudan in the last 10 days.
That's insane.
Yeah. His comparison right now is the Rwandan genocide. He said if we don't get people in there to stop this soon, it's going to be that. That's 500 to 600,000 people that were killed.
Dude, that's nuts. What is the rationale for these mass killings? Is it targeted to a minority? Is it just based along support for one of the two generals that are warring, or what's happening there?
This is one I need to dig deeper into. I've got an interview set up next week, actually, with a regional expert talking about that. I can give you a little background between RSF and SAF, but how that translates. So we'll do that. What happened here is you've got the Janjaweed militia, RSF, Rapid Support Forces. It was a militia. And a few years ago, there was a truce on the table for them to be absorbed into the SAF, the actual Sudanese armed forces, the government military. The RSF is heavily armed. They've had Wagner training. They've been provided arms by the UAE, by Russia. China actually has kind of been quietly arming both sides here, which sounds very China and Africa-ish. That's kind of been their move, is we'll sell you whatever you need. So the agreement was for the RSF to incorporate into SAF. That's how it was not going to divulge into even more violence. That fell apart, and the fighting has continued, and it hasn't stopped. And recently, what happened was the RSF pushed into El Fasher. The SAF had to leave, and this is a walled-up city in El Fasher. 9-foot berms built around the city to protect the inhabitants. And when the RSF came in, they kind of turned that around. And walls work both ways, right? And now those walls are keeping people in. In terms of why targeting the civilians, I don't know. RSF has a long history of pretty brutal atrocities. The SAF is not. This is to put it bluntly, this is a civil war in Africa. There's a lot of people dying that shouldn't be dying. The SAF has been accused multiple times of indiscriminate shelling of civilian areas and not being as precise as they probably should be in some of their operations. The accusations against the SAF kind of pale in comparison to the RSF that are just straight up murder, execution, rape. In the most recent incident, they recorded their fighters on video racing through town on motorcycles and pickup trucks, yelling, "Catch the girls! Catch the girls!" You know what's happening there. But yeah, next week I should have some more detail on what's happening, why exactly the civilians are a centerpiece in the RSF strategy. But it's wild, man.
That does sound absolutely insane. I felt like at one point last year, the RSF was close to winning, wasn't it? Or no, the SAF? One of them was close to winning, right?
I got to dig into this one. Yeah, the fighting has not stopped for a long time. It's dialed back a bit. I believe the RSF was shelling the capital at one point, and it looked like things were about to turn, but I don't know that it's been close to ending for a while. But yeah, I'm gonna do my research on this one and try to get a little more in depth next week.
That's insane, dude. That's horrible. Do you think we will see a U.S. intervention?
Okay, so this actually leads into the next topic in Africa. There's not a lot of outcry right now, and it's one that I'm having a hard time parsing because if what the Yale I feel like the Yale Humanitarian Research Hub seems like a viable, responsible organization. I don't know. And if their numbers are off by 10x, that means that 7,000 people were killed in the last 10 days, which is still pretty, it's crazy.
That's a lot, yeah.
So there's very little attention. The United Nations is doing what they do. They talk about it. They're not able to get in there. The U.S. apparently is continuing on with this group called the Quad. It's the UAE, U.S., Egypt and I think one other country involved in trying to broker a ceasefire there. No clear progress. Outside of that, I haven't heard anything from the United States. But what I'm saying, this plays into the rest of the conversation. We are talking about sending troops, boots on the ground, to Nigeria right now.
Yes.
To stop what President Trump says is the persecution of Christians. And it's one of those things where it's bad what's happening in Nigeria. There are some terrorist organizations there that arguably have the upper hand against the Nigerian government. Certainly in some areas of the country they control. But if you're putting that next to Sudan, it ain't bad. Sudan right now. So it's a weird mix where also in Nigeria, the Boko Haram, Islamic State, West Africa province, and some other insurgencies there, they are killing everybody. Mm-hmm. Like Islamic State, and I think most of the audience knows this, like they are the extreme of the extreme. They kill everyone who is not as extreme as them. This is a group that has fought and killed Al-Qaeda in Syria. They are actively engaged in warfare with the Taliban in Afghanistan right now because the Taliban are not pious enough for Islamic State. All right? So it's not that they hate Christians or they hate Jews. They hate everyone who is not them. So they will kill Muslims all day until they are the same level of religious piety as Islamic State. So in Nigeria, they are killing everybody. There have been some accounts of going after Christians, but it sounds like those numbers might be smaller than the targeted killings of Muslims. It's a bad thing. And if these terrorist organizations cease to exist, it'd be good. They're awful. There's nothing good about them. But the framing of this as like a Christian persecution is kind of weird. Even stranger given what's happening in Sudan just across the continent at the same time.
Yeah, I would fully agree. The Nigeria thing is very interesting because they are an ally of ours, perhaps our strongest ally in Africa. I guess Egypt's in Africa, but they are one of our strongest allies there, and it kind of makes no sense to me that he is threatening them, especially as if I recall, did we not cut off aid earlier this year to Nigeria, and we also cut off certain levels of military cooperation in the region under Biden and now under Trump? It just seems to me like I don't want to say we created this problem because it should not be underestimated how much Wagner played a role in the neighboring countries there. And it also, in Niger, it is not lost on me that ECOWAS, what do you know what I'm talking about?
The Economic Coalition of West African Nations or something, yeah.
Last year they talked, was it last year? Maybe 2 years ago? Jesus, I don't even know. They talked a big game about going in and stopping the coup there, and then they just didn't, right? And now ISIS and Boko Haram and all these other groups can get to do whatever they want there in Western Africa. So Nigeria does not need a U.S. invasion. It needs help. And the fact that we are threatening Nigeria instead of offering a hand, I think says a lot about how this administration views Africa and how it views our allies.
It's an interesting piece here because we know, we spent the first part of today's show talking about domestic politics, and zero of those elections had anything to do with foreign policy or national defense. They just didn't. Like, I know in the New York mayoral race, people tried to tie that to national security, like as a last ditch. This is a jihadi coming in, but like that was more attacks than like anybody's voting strategy, I think.
Yeah.
But Africa is not. Foreign policy is already far down the list, even in terms of presidential elections. And if you had to group areas that foreign policy, like the level of importance, Africa is probably the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, yep. I don't know there's much up for debate there. So if Africa is so unimportant day in and day out to the American voter, then we did not cause what's happening in Africa right now. You got to get some weird conspiracy stuff to get to that point. But we certainly have not committed resources there. And to your point, we have withdrawn in recent years, both under Biden and under Trump. There was a plan to stand up a pretty significant presence in Africa. AFRICOM was going to be a big deal. And we just kind of never put that into real motion. It never turned into the same level combatant command that we have in CENTCOM or European Command or SOUTHCOM or PACOM, and it's not close. So, it's not our doing, but we definitely have neglected Africa. And there's a fair argument, I think. Personally, I think there's some geopolitical benefits to being involved there and trying to help some of those nations prosper. But, we do have limited resources. And I would say that most people over the last 10, 20 years have put Africa farther down the list than everything else.
It's kind of like a core element of Trumpism that if this was any other president, there would just not be troops. They would just say, okay, all right, we'll deploy, 10 Reaper drones or however many it takes, right? And maybe we'll send, some air assets, and we'll give you intelligence sharing, and we'll sell you some weapons, and send Nigeria on their merry way to figure it out, right? But it is, I think, an element of Trumpism that he feels that he has to go do it himself, that he has to send U.S. troops there, and perhaps it's about getting credit. I don't know. But it just seems nonsensical to me that being the nation we are, we can help Nigeria in very many ways without actually burdening ourselves at all. And he chooses the one way that it does burden us. And so I don't... am I wrong? It just feels like what are we doing? It's like we could send troops, or we could just give them, I don't know, $1 billion, which is 0.00001% of our, national budget.
And this is one of those where you're right. There are a lot of options that we could do to try to assist in their counterterrorism efforts. But the president has been very clear. I mean, just yesterday, he talked about the possibility of putting American soldiers in Nigeria. So this is not like us trying to read between the lines or something. He is directly saying, no, I'm talking about boots on the ground. New York Times had an article last night or this morning that came out talking about the possibilities that supposedly President Trump has been briefed on for Nigeria. And one of them is a sustained air campaign against some of these IS Islamic State camps and Boko Haram camps. And they said one challenge, though, is the aircraft carrier in the region is currently headed to Venezuela. We just redeployed that. It's sailing across the Atlantic, right? Turn around, boys.
Turn around.
Venezuela's out, Nigeria's in. Yeah.
Whatever ended up coming of Venezuela? Last week we said there'd be a war coming by the end of the weekend. Now, there's no war. Is this talk?
There were reports that the decision was go. It was ready to go, and they walked it back. We'll never know if that's accurate or not. What we've seen in recent weeks is a sustained military buildup in Puerto Rico. So this is not just ships floating off the coast. They're building out airfields and putting semi-permanent structures down there that could sustain a long-term campaign against Venezuela. I would, in terms of a date, I would watch the Ford moving across the Atlantic. There's been a lot of reporting that, and this, you can kind of see how this makes sense, that Trump is not going to take action until the Ford is in theater and they can utilize that asset. If Maduro is watching that, then maybe a day before it arrives in theater.
I've heard that. I've heard that statement before. They're not going to take action until the Ford arrives. And then it happened a week before the Ford arrives. This is I really thought it would be last weekend because it was the Iran playbook all over again. I'm not going to strike the reports. He's going to strike Venezuela. I'm not going to strike Venezuela. Well, they might wait till the Ford gets there. And the Ford will get there in a week. I mean, it was beat by beat what they did in Iran. But no mas.
I think it's going to, I still think it's going to happen. I would be surprised if there's not strikes inside of Venezuela. That is still going to happen. And they're still talking it up. Everything's moving in that direction. Again, the buildup in the Caribbean is no longer this. We're not building permanent bases, but the effort and the cost that goes into repairing airfields, putting up air control towers, tents for the troops to live in, all of that stuff, repair facilities, you don't do that and then just turn around and come home. Or I don't know, I guess you could. It'd be a complete waste of money, but that suggests that more is coming. We're just trying to get the pieces in place.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree. I think something will happen. The question is, are we going to invade Nigeria and Venezuela? He's you know what he is? He's I don't want to say dumb George Bush, because that, but I do think George Bush was, to a certain level, much more intelligent than people gave him. But he's kind of like bad George Bush. We're going to invade two countries at the same time. But it's not like Afghanistan and Iraq. No. It's like a random number generator, Venezuela, Nigeria. Boom. Okay? What are we doing here?
It's the same tariff equation, right? It's whatever the tariff equation was, apply that to military force, here we go.
Dude, this is bizarre to me. And Trump's not even religious. He doesn't care, right?
Yeah, this is definitely an appeal to the evangelical aspect of his base.
Yes.
100%.
When asked what his favorite book in the Bible is, he said, well, I just love them all. Okay? There are just so many. They're all so great. That is an exact quote. Okay? He does not care. So you're right. He's just playing to his base. But I find it hard to believe that, like, after Tuesday's results, looking at this being like, wow, what the people really wanted was, to invade Nigeria.
That's what we're missing out on, man. Yeah.
If he invaded Nigeria, they would have won Virginia. Okay? I don't really get what's happening here. Kind of seems like we're doom spiraling on a national level. The question, though, is it better in Nigeria than Chicago and Portland?
Yeah. Use the military over there, not here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we got to get you off to your flight, so let's jump into a couple questions here.
All right. So we have a lot of great questions from a lot of our beautiful members. So, question for Presty. Oh, there we go. Are you at all surprised by the pace of Russian advance in the Pokrovsk? Yeah, Pros direction.
Why don't you try to pronounce it again? Because you were 0 for 3 there. And I said it out loud, so let's hear it.
Okay.
Jesus.
Dude, okay. Pokrovsk. No.
Pokrovsk.
Prosk.
I'm saying it out loud, and you were saying a different word. Pokrovsk.
Say it again.
All right. Pokrovsk.
No?
Jesus, man. No,
I don't know.
You're adding letters. We're not. Okay, we're moving on. This is getting ridiculous.
Well, maybe they should have a better alphabet. Go ahead.
Surprised about their pace. I don't know. I mean, yes, but maybe not. They've been fighting for Pokrovsk for 21 months. So, like, Pokrovsk is the 72nd largest city in Ukraine. It's not known as, like, a fortress hub. So I'm surprised that it's taken this long, in a sense. In the last couple weeks, there's been an increase, kind of, but it's weird. Like, Pokrovsk is in a very bad spot right now for Ukraine. They're on the verge of being cut off. They have very few options available, no doubt. But the way that Russia is advancing is not at all... Again, like, if we step back and look at this, it's weird to think that the second or third largest or strongest military in the world is relying on teams of 1 or 2 soldiers with a map and a radio kind of running when they can into a city and hiding in a basement until another one of their buddies shows up, and we call that an advance into the city. Like, it's been weird to watch. That said, it's been successful. Like, as they get in there, they're able to take the fight to some of these Ukrainian drone operator teams that are supposed to be a little bit back from the front, and they're pushing the line further and further. We did an interview with some international volunteers at the Azov International Battalion a few months ago, and in talking about these infiltration tactics, they said it is incredibly effective if you don't care about losing soldiers. And that's proving to be a pretty deadly combination, no pun intended, around Pokrovsk, because Russia doesn't generally care all that much. I mean, they just don't. You're hard-pressed to look at any campaign throughout this war and say that they very much value the lives of their individual soldiers. So we're seeing that play out, and it's working in their favor, kind of. The losses around Pokrovsk are staggering. I mean, every single day we're seeing videos of, like, stacked up Russian bodies on some of these approaches. So, yeah, I'm surprised. I don't know. Surprised at how slow it's taken when we zoom out. Is probably where I'd land on this. It was like 3 weeks ago. It was like Pokrovsk is going to fall any day, and it hasn't. It's a nasty fight there for sure.
This next one is military intervention in Mexico worth the effort or better just to provide intel to the Mexican military. That was another invasion we forgot. The invasion of Mexico, also on the boards apparently.
Yeah. You start off that one, man. I got some thoughts.
I think it's dumb. I think it's better just to provide intelligence. If they want like special forces assistance or whatever, I mean, I know our military is trained together. Well, not together, but the U.S. does help their military in training and acquiring assets. That would be good. I mean, I don't have any opposition to that. I think invading Mexico, putting troops into Mexico for, without the express consent of the Mexican government would be bad. I think that would be very bad. And there's really no reason to do that. Mexico is not an adversary. It is a pacifist nation. And if they want help, we can give them help. But there's really no reason for us to be airstriking Mexico. And I also think people have the wrong idea of, they have this idea they're going to go to Mexico, clear out the cartels, when we greeted like liberators or something. I just don't. That's just not true. That's just not true. Mexicans know it is deep in their cultural identity. There is opposition to U.S. troops because you look at history. U.S. troops going into Mexico usually results in that land becoming part of the United States and not Mexico still. So there is a lot of opposition. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying you have to understand the optics here. So I know. I think just give them intelligence. If they want, joint operations, you can give them that. But there's no reason for us to be acting as though Mexican is an adversary. So.
Yeah, I think it's looking at every problem is a nail. Like we're a hammer, every problem is a nail. Like the military solution isn't necessarily going to do anything here. Mm-hmm. It would be immediate short-term PR wins, taking out cartel leaders. Everybody across the United States would celebrate. But that's very similar to the whack-a-mole we play with terrorism, where we just keep doing it over and over and over and over and over again. The better solution is a closer, more robust partnership with Mexico. If they want additional intelligence sharing, if they want aerial assets, if they want boots on the ground, if we can find a way to do it, great. But I mean, I feel like the very simple comparison here, first off, we say the cartels, and which usually glosses over the fact that there are dozens of organizations that sometimes are competing, have different aims and different goals, different connections, different locations, different capabilities. So we're grouping this as like one thing. It is not one thing. So it's multiple organizations. And if we look at our experience in Afghanistan, I think this actually plays out pretty well. Or I think it's a pretty fair comparison. We, at one point, with NATO included, had north of 100,000 troops in Afghanistan, 100% air superiority, watching everything at all. I mean, just constant overhead coverage. You could drop bombs essentially wherever we wanted, put troops wherever we wanted in force. And we killed, I would argue, 95+% of the Taliban leadership that existed on September 11th, 2001. And we left, and the day we left, the Taliban took over. So what do we need to do in Mexico? What would make Mexico easier than that? A 20-year war with hundreds of thousands of troops pouring through the country and total, complete aerial dominance. I'm hard-pressed to look at Mexico and say, no, this would actually be easier. It looks like a more complex problem set. So, I don't know that there's, other than a short-term PR win that maybe pisses off our allies, like I don't know what military action would actually accomplish there if we're talking about trying to actually eradicate the cartels.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And I mean, after seeing how great Afghanistan went, I can see why people are tempted to do this. But, it's just no reason to do that. I just think we are letting the crazy people run the country. All right, so the next questions are, any advice on getting drafted to fight in Venezuela?
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. The good news is you don't have to worry about it. We're a long, long, long ways away from drafting people. That is so politically unpopular.
The draft?
Yeah. For people to actually be drafted.
Yeah. No, there will never be a draft again. Yeah. At least not.
I mean, I think I wouldn't write it off entirely, but we would need a country unified like we saw on 9/11, but in a way that also sees the loss of a significant number of military personnel, and we're needing to backfill, and we expect a long-term peer-to-peer fight. So, like, I just, yeah. And even then, it's going to be very politically sensitive for our politicians to even move forward with that.
You would need, you would need an attack like 9/11 or Pearl Harbor, but you would also need really bad economic conditions, and the survival of the nation to be at stake, right? In order to even pull it off. It's hard to imagine what that could even be, you know?
Now, Guard and Reserve, going to see more mobilizations. I guarantee it. Between the stateside deployments, and even though those aren't massive, those are chewing up resources. We're talking just today. There was, we've got Venezuela, we've got Mexico. We are pulling some troops back from Europe, it sounds like. But we talked about adding additional troops to maybe Nigeria.
Classic.
We got a peacekeeping force in Gaza. And we've stood up or are in the process of standing up some sort of cell in Syria. So I don't think troop deployments are going down at all. And with adding some of the domestic stuff, I have a feeling that if you're Guard or Reserve, you're probably going to end up activated at some point at this pace.
All right, and our last question is, what's your take on Steve Bannon? He's a major intellectual architect behind the MAGA movement, and foreign policy-wise, he argues for America to be a Pacific nation and be very tough on the CCP.
So I'm going to lean on you for this one, Ben. Every time I've not really listened to anything or seen what Bannon says. Every time I see him, it looks to me like he's about to die. Like he is like the picture of unhealth.
The Mucinex booger. The Mucinex.
Like if you told me if we got off this show and we found out that he died, I'd be like, yeah. I mean, it looks like he's been on death's door for a couple years. But anyways, Steve Bannon, what do you got?
I think he is very smart. I think he's wrong on basically everything, but he is very smart. He is
wrong, or you disagree. Wrong, or you disagree with him.
Aren't they both the same thing?
I don't know. I mean, if you could say if he says America first means no overseas deployments at all, that's not necessarily wrong. I would disagree and say that we need to have troops forward deployed to actually protect our country. So is it that he's saying things that you believe it's probably a mix.
I mean, you present an interesting point here. Is he wrong or do I disagree? I kind of think they're the same thing, right? Because if he said America, the best way to protect America, the best way of saying in America first, is to bring everyone home, I would say no, that's wrong. It's to forward deploy, as you said, right? So that's me saying he's wrong, right? Okay. I mean, I don't know.
I feel like we can parse this, though. Like, the argument around do higher taxes or lower taxes improve growth or not? Like, I don't know, maybe that's a bad example. No, I think there is a middle ground there. Just a policy difference of I think your policy is not the right prescription. It could be right. It could be accurate. I don't think it's the right path. I don't think it's the correct path. Policy difference.
So you would say
I think there's something there.
Could be wrong.
I'm not articulating it well.
So I'm saying you're saying that you think he might be wrong then.
No, I'm not articulating this well, but like an idea that I just think is not the right direction, for instance. It's not wrong. It's just I don't think that is the direction we should move in.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I disagree. I also think he's
sidetracked.
wrong. Okay. I think he's wrong, and I also disagree, just to cover both bases. I mean, his big thing now is he's focusing on Trump getting a third term. I mean, whatever. I mean, what's interesting about Steve is that I think people often make the mistakes of assuming that the reason their political opponents don't agree with them is because they are... I think everyone has, like, the noble savage view of their political opponents, and that, the reason people don't agree with you is because they're dumb, right? And they just don't understand. But Steve Bannon, like, he does understand. I mean, you listen to him talk. He goes on quite a few liberal podcasts from time to time, and he does, talk in great depth on these issues. He certainly understands them, but we have the wrong prescription on how to solve them. He also has a desire for a more authoritarian government than what we currently have, and I just think that is wrong, and I disagree. And I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, he is an important player, but it's also kind of hard. I mean, especially with the third term thing, he keeps saying he's gonna unveil the plan. The big question mark around Steve Bannon is how much is he still in Trump's orbit? Because he's no longer in the White House. He doesn't work in the White House, right? But he
Did he get fired? Did he get fired?
So how in the loop is he? What'd you say?
Did he get fired by Trump? Was he one of the people pushed out, or is he just not involved directly in this administration?
So I'm trying to jog my memory here, but I believe he was not pushed out. No. So he was a Trump guy, and in Trump's first administration, all his cabinet secretaries, everyone around him were like Bush Republicans, and they slowly pushed him out. And then Bannon went to jail for lying to the FBI or lying to Congress or something like that, and then he got out. And so I believe he still advises Trump, but he's very unpopular, so they don't have him in the White House.
Okay.
So I don't quite know, but like the big question is like, how in the loop is Steve Bannon on what's going on in the White House? That is the big question. It's like, well, I don't know. Is he just yapping? Is he just talk about the third term? I mean, Trump talks about the third term stuff, but the secret plan, he's going to do it. Does Bannon know something that we don't? I don't know. So what do you make of Steve Bannon?
I'm learning most about Steve Bannon right here. Again, my entire perception is every time I see him, it looks like the guy's about to fall over dead. Yeah. He looks so incredibly unhealthy. Like always looks puffy and red and like he's probably sweating just standing around. I don't know.
What? He kind of looks like he smells like beef. Like a beef, going into like a Portillo, like a beef shack, and you kind of just...
Oh, we've got a new... Ben, this is important. We've got a new Italian beef place here in Murfreesboro.
Really?
I haven't been yet.
Have you been?
I don't know what
No, you haven't been.
No, haven't been. Let's see.
That's very exciting. You're going to get the hot jarnere and the sweet peppers? Or you just hot jarnere? Or do you do...
I just do the hot stuff, yeah.
What do you think about the people putting the cheese on it? I don't know. I think that's too much. I think the Italian beef's already heavy enough. The cheese on it is a different sandwich. Really heavy.
Steakhouse 5, Vito's Mark. Here we go. Buona. I don't know. That name doesn't sound...
Oh, wait. No. That's a chain. That's like very big out here. There are a lot of Buena beefs here.
Okay. So you're saying it's legit?
I'm saying it's legit. I'm saying that isn't a Chicago... They have Chicago hot dogs on the menu too, don't they?
Yeah, Chicago-style dogs.
Yeah. No, you have a Chicago chain. I don't know if it's originally from Chicago, but they're all over the place here.
Hot peppers, sweet peppers, cheese.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any of you, all you listeners, you ever come to Chicago, I'll tell you right now, you get an Italian beef, you get it with hot jarnere. They're going to say, do you want it dipped or not? I'm not a dipper. I don't like the dip is they take the bread and they put it in the gravy and so the sandwich is wet. Look. I don't like it wet. I think you're just you're eating. I mean, basically drinking wet bread, though. I just think it's a lot. So I like it dry with hot jarnere on it. Oh, it's incredible. What do you get? You just do hot stuff? Do you do it dipped?
It's been a while. No, I haven't had a dip, but you're kind of making me hungry. Maybe I'll go over there today.
You got to go. You got to go.
They have one called Baptized. They have one called Baptized where they dip the entire sandwich in.
It's too much, man. It's just a lot.
Right.
I just don't understand. And I think that is... I know people who like that, and I just think those are the true sickos. Those are the guys you got to watch for, you know? So, I don't like that. Anyways, folks, thank you for listening to this beautiful episode of the Unclassified Podcast. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Give us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple or wherever you get us. And we'll see you next week.